All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation. Tonight, we are joined by longtime Poolsville resident and small engines expert Kevin Thomas. Tonight, he will walk us through the workings of a small engine and describe some of the common problems and fixes. Reminder, please remain muted during the presentation, and as always, you can send any questions you have throughout in the chat. There will be an opportunity at the end to unmute for a Q&A. If you enjoyed tonight's presentation, make sure to check out our website and register to join us again next week. Without further ado, Kevin and Bill, take it away.
Thanks a lot. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Bill McDonald. I'm with Poolsville Seniors, and we are very fortunate here this evening to have Kevin Thomas, who is going to be taking us through all the intricacies. There's Kevin right there. And you can see we have a small engine here that he's going to take us through this evening. I want to emphasize that this is Kevin's hobby. This is not something he does for a living or for pay, but he has been gracious enough to help us understand how a small engine works, small gasoline 4-cycle engine works. Okay, Kevin.
Hi, how you
You
doing?
want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, and I've been in Poolsville about 20-some years, and I do like working on cars. I like working on engines. I started working on cars with my father when I was a teenager, worked on them with my brothers. I still like working on them. I find it therapeutic and relaxing most of the time when it's not under pressure, but I do like it, enjoy it.
Great. What's that behind you over there?
Porsche 911. That's my project at the moment. I have the engine out of it. I'm rebuilding the engine. So I'm waiting for stuff to come back.
Okay. Well, you want to tell us a little bit about the smaller engines that most of us have to worry about, especially this time of year when we're getting things ready for all of our spring and summer work.
Yep, this is a typical lawnmower 4-stroke engine. It's probably 10 years old, but they're all pretty much the same inside. They have a lot more newer ones are more modern. They have more electronic stuff on them, but basically they're the same thing internally. This is a single cylinder, this is a single piston with a valve train, and every lawnmower is pretty much like this. I mean, but the problem is that they run great until you put them away in the springtime. If you leave them outside, mice get in them, or they chew something, or the gasoline goes bad. You have to have spark and air and fuel for any gasoline engine to run. And any one of those things missing will cause the mower not to run. And that's, people run into that all the time.
And you found a video that has a great example of how this type of an engine runs. Dottie, would we be able to bring that up at this point?
Yes, I will share my screen now. Just give me one moment.
Sure. There we go.
Side of the flywheel to stall the engine. As the rope is pulled, the starter engages the drive cup on the flywheel and rotates the crankshaft. The rotating crankshaft connects to the piston, which moves up and down within the cylinder, and the ignition process begins. The flywheel has permanent magnets built into it, and as it rotates past the ignition coil, a magnetic field is created. The magnetic field induces electricity, allowing the ignition coil to send voltage to the spark plug. Meanwhile, the intake valve opens as the piston travels down the cylinder, creating a vacuum which draws fuel and air through the carburetor where it mixes before entering the cylinder. This action is called the intake stroke of the engine. Next, the compression stroke takes place as the piston travels back up to the top of the cylinder and the intake valve closes. The spark plug now fires and ignites the compressed fuel and air mixture, which forces the piston down, creating the power stroke. The momentum of the spinning flywheel provides enough force to push the piston back up. The exhaust valve opens and the combustion gases exit through the muffler. This is called the exhaust stroke. The engine will continue to run and repeat these 4 cycles until it is shut off. Some engines may have a choke or primer bulb on the carburetor to assist with starting, especially when the engine is cold. The choke will temporarily restrict airflow through the carburetor, so more fuel can
Dottie,
enter the
we're at a point
cylinder.
where we can see,
Likewise,
we can
a
look at this in person. Thank you. All right. So you got a chance to take a look at that diagram. Anything you want to point out before we get started and actually look at this engine?
So that people understand, on a 4-stroke engine, the piston is firing every other time. Every other time it goes up and down, which is the reason why you need a flywheel. And that's what carries the piston momentum to the next stroke, because it doesn't fire one time going up. So you have to have all that weight to pull it up and down. And that's what keeps the engine running nice and even.
So basically you've got this back and forth motion that's turned into an around and around motion.
Correct. So I'm going to take the top off. Well, first I'm going to tell you, if you have a problem when you're trying to start your mower in the spring and you just start pumping the valve, the ball valve over here, if you want to show it.
I don't break my neck here.
This is the valve where you push it in and then pushes the fuel into the carburetor, which is right here.
So
If
that's
this-
that carburetor I keep hearing
Right here's the
about.
carburetor, right here's the air. I'm going to show them to you better in a minute.
Okay.
But if you keep pushing this and you're like, okay, now I got fuel in there, I'm going to try to start it, and your mower doesn't start, and you keep trying to pull it and pull it, it doesn't want to start. What's going to happen is it's going to flood. And when that happens, the spark plug gets all wet. And you'll find that out by pulling the spark plug out. And when it's all wet, it's never going to fire. So that at least means that you're getting gas. Doesn't mean you're getting spark. So the way to check spark is to take the spark plug out and leave it in the holder, and then put it against the body and pull the cord, and you'll see a small spark. That'll tell you that the spark plug is working.
Okay.
So I'm going to take the top off so it's easier for you to see.
Okay.
Another thing about these engines is they're air cooled. They need cool air to go in through the top, and then it goes over here and goes down on top of the cylinder, which I will show you. Mice like to build nests in there and block the airflow, and your mower will overheat. And you'll kill your mower in a short time. The part that I'm taking off is just the pull start section. It's just a cover to make it look nice, pretty much. Not all mowers are easiest to take apart. Some of them have more bolts, some of them don't. Most of them are pretty simple. All right, so the air comes in through the top, goes in here, and it goes down across here, and these are the fins that keep the engine from overheating.
Yeah, I can see those fins right there surrounding the spark plug.
Yeah, and the spark plug, if you ever have to change them, you don't know how to do it, you just get the right tool. In there. Pull the spark plug out. Now, it has to have a good spark. It can have a weak spark and the mower won't run very well. It needs to have a good spark. So try to get a fresh spark plug. If it looks like this, you definitely don't want to leave it in there. If you don't have a choice, you can always take a piece of sandpaper, just temporarily, and just run it through there like that and clean the gunk off. But it's better to use a new spark
Now the
plug.
spark, show me exactly where the spark goes.
Spark comes between this electrode right here
Okay.
and that little nub sticking up.
Okay.
And that distance is called the spark plug gap. and they're all different, but most lawnmowers use about, I forget what the exact specification is on it, but they're all set. Most of them
Yeah.
come set.
So
already.
when you buy the spark plug, you don't need to change that
Yeah,
gap.
it's good to check them, and all your manuals will tell you what it should be.
Mhm.
Okay, and then on this side is where the air filter is. If you have to change the air filter, they're really, really easy. Just turn this. You can pull the air filter off. It's much easier to work on a mower with the top off of it. You don't have to leave it on. It's much easier to get to things. So the carburetor is right here. This is the air filter.
You had that one that you took out earlier.
Yes, here's the air filter. Look out. This is not that old. It's a few years old. They just get dirty because it's always going around in
Yeah.
dust and everything else and oil. And so it's good to keep a good clean filter in there, because if the mower can't breathe, it's going to choke up and it's going to not run very well. It's not good for the motor.
And where would you get a filter like that if I just wanted to change my air filter?
I got this one at John's Hardware.
Okay,
Tractor
up-
Supply.
right
carries-
up in town.
Yep, Tractor Supply carries them, Amazon, any place like that.
Okay.
Um,
And you just specify the model that you have?
Yep.
Okay.
But you'd be amazed, most of them of this. If you buy a Toro, most all of these are Tecumseh motors, all of them have the same filter.
Okay.
Very little difference. So this is the carburetor and this is the bulb. And you push that when you're starting your mower, as most people know, you push that, and that's what pushes the air and the fuel into the carburetor, right? It pulls it through these lines. This is the fuel line, and it pulls it into here, and then the cylinder picks it up. So if you have your mower and it won't start, the first thing to check is make sure your gas is good. Smell it. If it doesn't, if it smells like turpentine, it's no good. So if it's been in there 6 months or a year, take it out and just put fresh fuel in there. You can pull the line off the bottom right here, put a cup under there, and it'll all come out. Mowers like this don't have a fuel pump. They're gravity fed. That's why the tank is so high. It goes down and feeds into the carburetor like this, and then it goes into there. They're gravity fed. There's no.
Now,
no pump.
what would you do with the gasoline that you take out of here?
Take it to the transfer station. That's the
Okay.
only place that'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, put it in a safe container and take it out of
Hmm.
there. Another thing about safety is if you're working on a mower, most of them have a safety switch built into them, like this. It won't let the mower start, but pull the spark plug wire just in case, because people have been hurt pretty bad doing that with the
Hmm.
blade,
Okay.
especially when you're trying to turn it over. All right, let me take the other part off and then you can see. All the other thing, most of these tanks in your way, you can pull them right off. They just have rubber clips on them. You should do an oil change every year.
Oh, yeah.
Once every 2 years, depends
Yeah.
how long, what you mow, grass you gotta mow. Like I said, these are one cylinder, single cylinder mowers. They're 4-stroke, but it's got one piston in there and it works hard.
Let me get behind you and see.
I'm just taking this black casing off.
Okay.
Underneath of this is the flywheel, and you'll see other things. Another problem with mowers is they surge. I'm sure a lot of people experience that. That is usually fuel related. The fuel just is if they're dirty, or the carburetor is not getting through the carburetor very well. And so the mower will constantly rev up and down and rev up and down.
Oh, I've had that happen.
Yeah, and so this thing right here is the governor. This is the thing that when your mower's running and you go into high grass, puts a load on the mower, this automatically raises the speed of the mower. That's what a governor does.
Ah.
And-
So it senses the resistance of that high grass and gives it more.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing to look at. It's built up inside of here. It's like a set of flywheel, like weights,
Mhm.
spring-loaded weights. And this thing is what moves, right? The whole thing moves when the throttle.
Yeah.
And so you'll see them go like this. They'll be revving back and forth, right? And so it's usually always a fuel issue. You
Okay.
can try to take the bowl off, check the fuel in there. Sometimes you have to replace the carburetor. A lot of times it's just, you need to clean the carburetor. That's why I say it's imperative to keep good fuel in it, things like that. It's much better. Good maintenance saves you a lot of time in the long run. It might seem like a lot of work at the time, but from working on cars in the years, I tell you, it might seem like a waste of time to people, but it saves you a lot of money in the end. When they break, they're expensive. You don't want to buy a new mower either.
Yeah, they're running anywhere $600 to $1,000 for them.
Like I said, there's not very
A
many
decent
bolts
one.
to hold these together. Another thing that happens is people, when they're mowing their grass, will hit a rock, or they'll hit a big high spot in the dirt and stop the mower. It's usually a rock that does it, and the mower will stop running. And what happens is, inside of here, there's a keyway built into the flywheel. And when you hit a rock, it shears it off. It's to save the mower. It saves the mower, but you have to go in and put a new one in. The safety item built in. Okay, so this is the flywheel. These are the fins. When this is turning with the blade, this is creating air that goes through that ductwork and goes down over top of the cylinders. This is the cylinder head. This piece right here, the piston is right here, and then on these sides are the two valves that go up and down that let the air and the fuel mixture in, like you saw in the video. Another issue is this is ignition. This is what causes the spark for the spark plug. These are magnets, and when they go past this thing right here, they cause a charge, which gives the spark to the spark plug, right? When these get dirty, these get rusty from sitting outside. This gets rusty and this gets rusty, and it'll cause a weak spark. So take a little bit of sandpaper and just clean them off, because you'll be amazed how dirty they get. Because as you can see, it's a really close tolerance right there.
Right.
If you loosen these bolts, this thing's adjustable, but there should be just a paper thin distance in between there. If it's too far away, the spark won't be good. So always keep these clean too. Never hurts. That surging issue I told you about, this is another problem. See the spring? This is connected to the governor. If this spring comes off or is broken or stretched, like you hit something with it, the governor won't be able to do its job properly. So you need to make sure that spring's working properly. Most things never have an issue unless you run it into something, run it into a branch, things like that. That's how it happens. A stick gets jammed up underneath there.
Yeah.
All right. This is the cup. This cup is the part that attaches to the string when you pull it. There's a thing that attaches on here. So these will wear out. See those nubs in there? There's a wear out, and you'll have to replace this cup. They also can rust out from the bottom, and the cup will break off. So you can replace this. So you take this bolt off, and this flywheel goes straight off.
Okay.
Okay. So the flywheel does two jobs. Keeps it like a fan, like I said, and it also is the weight to keep the piston going. Okay. Let's see. Carburetor. On these carburetors, there's not a lot of adjustments. This is an idle adjustment right here. And when you start the mower, this will go over here and it'll hit against this screw. All that screw is the idle adjustment. A lot of mowers don't have any other adjustments on them anymore. They don't want you messing with them. They want you tinkering with them. It's automatic. That's what the governor and all this stuff is for. Older mowers had a bunch of, you could adjust a lot of things. So
Yeah, I remember getting myself in trouble messing with those things.
yep, there's a couple screws, but like I said, some of them for the jets, you don't really want, unless you know what you're doing, you don't really take it apart. Unless you want to experiment, you can take them apart. But changing the carburetor is just basically these two bolts and then these hookups.
So there's bolts on either side of it. I see them.
Yeah, this is called the mat bolt. This is just the bolts. And then you unhook the spring. If you take this off, make sure you put it in the right hole. See how there's multiple holes on there?
Oh, yeah.
You want to make sure you put it back in the same hole.
Take a picture of it with your phone.
Yeah, take lots of pictures if you take something apart. This tube here is strictly a vacuum tube. See how it hooks to the engine there? It's for vacuum. Sucks it. It's what makes all engines have to have vacuum for pulling the vacuum. Like I said, keep everything clean, keep the spark plug clean, things like that, because each one of them has to have all 3 of them to work properly. Gasoline is 14-1. It's a 14 parts air to 1 part gasoline. So if the mixture is off, you'll have a rich mixture if there's too much gas. It's too lean, it has too much air. That's how they run. If you get a little bit off, it will not start.
And these are the things that adjust that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But most of them, you never really have to worry too much about them. As long as you keep good fuel in there and stuff. Ethanol is not good for these. It's really bad for 2-cycle, for the ones like on chainsaws and things like that.
Yeah.
Because it just eats at the diaphragms. These don't have the diaphragm like that. So that's what I was going to tell you. Look at my notes. Pretty much told you. It is possible for this fuel hose, it gets old and gets cracks in it. As you can see, there's really no filter. You can add one to it if you really want to, but
Yeah, I've seen those before.
these crack and they go bad, and then you'll get, it gets brittle, and you'll lose your gas flow. Sometimes something falls in the tank and blocks that little hole on the top. That's like a leaf or something that's in there, blocks the hole. So the piston, just so you know, like it says in the diagram, the piston is running this way. There's a shaft that runs from here, down here, all the way to the blade. And it's a crankshaft, all right? It has like things on it that have a nubs that push the valves open and close right here. The piston goes this way, the valves go this way, they're on their side. And then they convert the energy down that way.
Right, round and around. Now, you mentioned the carburetor before, that you could fix it. You can, if something's wrong with it.
Sometimes you can. Most carburetors, you just clean it because they're in a dirty environment. It sucks in dirty air.
Right.
Gets a piece of dirt in there. On the bottom of the carburetor is a float bowl. These go bad too. If you look at this one, you'll see that it's cracked all the way around. Right.
Let's see how close I can get in here with this.
See right in there, it's cracked and it's just old. This bulb is working, but it's not working well. See it cracks in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy a new one and just replace it. You just take this part off and it goes inside there.
Okay.
So I'm pull right off, but there's dirt in here. There's a little needle valve in there. It goes up and down, and a float. If the float's bad, it won't read the fuel correctly. It'll overflow the thing, the float bowl. It could be a lot of things. It's not, if you just eliminate most of the easy ones, usually the problem is gone. But a lot of times it's more complicated stuff. Like I said, the dirt. And this can be not good. You can push on it all you want, and it won't push any fuel into the carburetor. It won't suck anything because there's no vacuum. That's an easy fix.
Now, what does it take to clean the carburetor? I mean, what would you have to actually do?
Oh, you can use carburetor cleaner. Just put it in a metal pan.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot you can take apart. Take the bottom off, and if you look, you'll see these 2 little floats on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a diagram of one, it'll show you. But the needle valve usually gets stuck or it gets dirty. There's a little pin needle valve, and you can buy a kit to replace it. Just make sure you buy it for the right carburetor.
You would just unscrew that thing, or?
This has a bolt on the bottom right here.
Okay.
Take that bolt off, and then you're going to see the float bowl hanging. It's like things hang down there. And as this fills up with gasoline, it pushes them up like a toilet. Works like a toilet.
Okay.
And when it gets up high enough, the needle valve shuts the fuel flow off. And then when it gets running out of fuel, it drops down, fuel is allowed to go again. So the needle valve is what controls the amount of fuel going into the carburetor.
Yeah.
Leading it.
Did you say, was there like a diaphragm you mentioned? Something in
the 2-cycle.
Oh, in a 2-cycle. Okay.
A 2-cycle carburetor doesn't look anything like this. And the reason why is because they have little diaphragms inside that act like a fuel pump.
Okay.
And part of it's because when you have a chainsaw or a weed whacker or something like that, you're moving it all around. Like this is a gravity feed. You can't gravity feed something you're turning upside down. If it's upside down, it's upside right. You're doing like that, the gasoline can't flow. So when you have a carburetor that's pulling the fuel, then it's no problem.
Huh.
And those diaphragms are like paper, like square paper. And there's one on either side, and one of them, they rattle really quickly and they suck fuel as it does it. When they go bad, ethanol eats at them. It makes the paper brittle and makes it hard. And gasoline today all has ethanol. If you use the true fuel or something like that, it doesn't have any in there, but it's expensive. But if you're making your own, you're going to have ethanol in there. So after a while, it eats away at the diaphragm, then the carburetor doesn't want to work anymore. It doesn't pull fuel, or it takes too much, fuel leaks by it. So those are really easy to fix. You can take one off of a chainsaw with 2 screws, basically.
Yeah.
And the carburetors are very small, 4 screws on, and you just take it off and the diaphragm is right there. Just buy the right kits.
And that's a lot of times when you try to start an old chainsaw, that's a lot of times what the problem is.
Yeah,
So,
fuel is one of their biggest issues.
mhm.
And in the tank, there's a little filter. The hose goes in the tank and there's a little filter on the end of it, and that filter gets clogged too. So you have to replace those.
Okay.
You can get those at John's Hardware too. He has what
Okay.
else? Yeah,
So if we,
2-cycle are a lot different. They're a different beast. They fire every single time. Instead of the piston firing every other time, they fire every time. They also do not have a valve train, like the thing that opens and closes.
yeah,
They have things called ports. They're holes in the side of the cylinder. And so they do the job in 2 strokes. I mean, they fire every single time.
Huh.
And so that's why they can rev really high. They don't have a valve train to get, slow
so
down.
why wouldn't you use a two-stroke engine on something like a lawnmower?
Not power, I don't think. I think
Okay.
these have a much, you see, they're much larger.
Right.
This is a 6 horsepower, right? These are a much larger cylinder. It's harder to stop them, That's my belief, I guess.
That makes sense. Yeah. So, is there anything else you wanted to show us tonight?
I think
We can, oh, go
This
ahead.
too, this is easy to replace. These do go bad. This is the Magneto. The magnets come around and make the spark, but these will die. They'll go bad, and you can just buy a new one. But when you, like I said, when you put it on there, make sure when you undo these screws, this thing will slide. It's like that. You can put a piece of paper or sandpaper between there, a feeler gauge, and you will set it so that it matches up with this.
Right. So when that one
there.
magnet goes by, it
Right,
does its job.
right, exactly.
Excellent.
But if
Good.
this doesn't work, you won't have any spark at all.
Okay.
This other thing I will show you, underneath of the flywheel, see this green wire? This green wire is a ground wire. It goes over here and it goes to this. See where that cable's moving?
Yeah.
That is so, when the mower's like this, it won't fire, right? It's grounded out.
Okay. When you've got it released like
Mhm.
that. Okay.
Right, when you go to start the mower, you pull this down. And what that does is spark will always try to go to ground. It'll take the easiest path. That's why if you are working on something in your house, you need electrocuted because it takes the easiest path, which is through you to the ground. So with this, same thing. When you let go of that, it grounds out this and it stops the spark from going here, so the mower dies.
Hmm.
And that's what this ground wire does. If this rubs constantly and gets a short, right,
Oh, yeah.
it can go to ground too. It can cause a problem.
And so then you're not getting any spark at all.
That's right. And you'll think that this is bad, but it's not. So you need to check these wires to make sure these springs haven't gotten caught on anything, or when you put the lid back down on top of there, it doesn't cut the wire,
Yeah.
It's very easy to do.
Okay. Are we ready to open up to some questions? It's only 7:30, but if we've seen everything, I don't want to.
I see a question in the chat that just says how to change the oil.
Some of them you change it from the bottom of the mower. Some of them you dump it out. Depends on the mower.
Okay.
I've heard it done both ways on these.
The ones I've done before, it's always been on the bottom of
Right,
the mower.
underneath there's a screw and you take the
Yeah.
screw out.
I don't know if we can get,
I can probably
is there any
do
way
it.
we can, we better put a couple of things back on before we go look under there. But definitely,
Yeah.
I use a pan underneath of it.
Yes, your pan works.
Here's the part I always fail in, putting it back together.
Back together.
I can take them apart just fine.
Like, see where this wire is?
Yeah.
See how there's a gap here, right? The wire, you can't make sure the wire's not here. So when you put it down here, you don't cut the wire.
Yeah.
The wire has to be in its hole. But like I said, if you take pictures ahead of time, I take a zillion pictures.
That's thinking ahead.
Yep.
Feel free to leave any questions you have at this time in the chat, or go ahead and unmute and ask them. I see one that says, where do you dispose of your used oil?
Transfer station takes it. The beauty spot does not take oil anymore.
Not anymore.
They used to, but they don't anymore, right?
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
I've if you have a regular mechanic, a lot of times because they have some that they have to get rid of. I've left it, my mechanic has allowed me to leave it with him. So, but that's something you'd have to deal with him. That's actually my solution. I could take it down to the transfer station, but if I can just drop it off with him,
yeah, sometimes you can make a deal with them, but I usually just save it in a bucket, or a container, and then I take it down to the transfer.
yeah, I'll actually use the containers that the clean oil comes in, and then
Right.
just store it, and I mark it on the side that it's used oil. And then after I have a collection of about 5 or 6 of those, it's time to take them somewhere.
That's right. Yeah, it builds up a lot. This car holds like a case of oil because it's oil cooled and air cooled, so it holds a
Oh,
case.
wow.
So when you do an oil change, it's a lot. It's a lot of oil. Like I said about this one thing with this cylinder head right underneath of here, you never can see down inside there, right? You
Yeah.
can't even look under there hardly. This is where mice like to build the nest. Inside of here, on power washers, everything. And of course, they're right next to the flywheel. So when you pull the string, you'll feel something or you'll hear something
Right.
sometimes. But there'll be a big nest right here.
Like a squeak.
And yeah, it's right, it happens. And so you'll either kill them, but either way, it'll stop this sometimes. And even if it doesn't, all the airflow is stuck right here. It just goes around in a circle right here, and you can't cool the cylinders very well.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's not that hot outside, that's one thing. But when it's hot outside, and this mower's running and running, they get hot and they need their airflow. Otherwise, it's really hard on the cylinder.
Yeah, I would imagine it's metal, so the metal would expand and cause all kinds of problems.
Yep. Overheating can cause the engine to seize up. They're designed to run at a certain perimeter. They also have a higher expansion rate because of they have a higher thermal change in temperature. Also, if you change the spark plug, don't over torque it.
Yeah.
It means do not make it too tight. There's a specific setting for it, but don't just get on there and crank it down because these are aluminum heads. Either way, the spark plugs will just strip out. And once you strip a spark plug out, big problem.
Your mower's done.
You're pretty much done. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Also, these rubber caps get really messed up and water can get in there and cause this to corrode, and then you won't get a good spark.
So really, I think the general message I'm getting here is that you need to kind of look at everything and see, is it wearing, is it worn, is it cracked?
That's right.
Is there any place water could get in there? Is there anything inside of the cover that shouldn't be in there?
Yep. And the easiest thing is to maintain it properly, first of all. And if you don't know when you pull it out and you think you've done a pretty good job, just pull the cover off, which is pretty easy to get off, and just look at the wires. Look at the wires, look at the hoses, make sure there's not cracks, because time and heat does a number on them. The constant heat cycling does a number on them.
And you're always using them in the hottest part of the year.
Correct. Indeed. Also, when you move your mower around and you check the oil, you'll see that the oil is like all the way up the dipstick when you've moved the mower.
Mhm.
So always clean it off first. Like take it out, clean it, then put it back in. And a lot of them will tell you not to screw this down, even though it seems like it should go in. Someone will say, do not screw the lid down when checking the oil. So just put it in there and you pull it back out and you'll look at the
Oh, yeah.
oil.
And there's the marks.
Right.
Okay.
And do not overfill them. Overfilling oil is bad news too. It'll get sucked into the intake system. Not good either. Causes smoking, other issues.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed. Older mowers will do more smoking right at the beginning, right when I first start them out.
Yeah, part of that is the piston rings they wear. Well, yeah, that's the main wear item.
Right.
Between the bearings.
Mhm.
After time, they will. It expands a little bit, it seals better.
Right.
But
I see another question in the chat that says, is there anything that works to keep the mice out of the motors?
Is
what?
there anything that works to keep mice out of the mower?
Mothballs does a pretty good job. Yeah, mothballs works.
I don't think you'd have to put them in there. You could just put them on top or something.
Yeah. Mice just wreak havoc. My gasoline containers underneath of my deck, they ate the little caps off of it. They ate the caps right off the top. I don't think it's mice. I think it might be squirrels. Yeah, they went in there and ate the,
Ate the caps
yeah,
off.
they ate the little top right off. You know the little vent on the back?
Yeah.
They ate those right off there. Both of them. Left the rest of it alone. I'll show you on the bottom of this mower. There's a belt underneath there because this is a rear drive mower. So there's a belt under there that is amazing that it doesn't break more often because it's constantly wet and dirty and nobody ever cleans it. I don't think I've ever replaced this one, but I should. Right back together on the top. This is a lot of pieces. Let's make sure your spark plug and everything's back on. The easiest way to show you. Let's put this on. Put this on.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just go ahead and take that
Flip it
out.
upside down.
We're going to show you now where the oil comes out. Now, what I've done with mine is I set it up on like blocks. So there's room underneath of it.
Yep.
Set each of the wheels up on a block. So there's enough space down below to be able to get to it.
Just grab that side real quick and just stick it around the floor.
Okay.
You don't mind.
I got it.
I'm gonna lean it that way towards you because
Okay.
that's the carburetor is on this side. So you don't want fuel to fly out of there.
Okay. Let's take a look. I think I see it.
It's usually right there.
Yeah, that's it.
That bolt right there
Yeah.
under the blade. Yeah.
And the one that I've got actually is a square head on the bolt.
And you need to take this bolt out
Right.
to move this bracket, and then you can get to that. I mean, it just makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
Here's the belt that when you pull the lever up there.
Let me bring this light around over here. I've got a light right here. There we go. That's a little bit better. Oh, there's the belt. I see it.
Yeah, see this belt right here?
Mhm.
That's the belt that when you pull on that thing, it tightens up, and that's what drives the transmission in here. There's a transmission in there. But this cover comes off, but this belt gets full of stuff, and which is usually why it's hard to start the very first couple times because grass has got stuck up in there. Another place mice like to go, but
I'm looking for the oil drain. You think it's underneath
it's
of
right
it?
there.
Oh, there it
It's
is.
underneath that bracket.
Oh, I see. So on this one, you have to get the bracket out. And
Yeah.
mine, it's right out in the open.
Yep. Some of them are like that. I changed this one. You have to take this loose and it just swings out of the way.
Okay.
It's just one, but you don't have to take that one loose. And then you just loosen that bolt and the oil comes out of there.
Mhm.
I have read of ones where you can dump it out, but this is the better method because it comes out
Yeah,
the bottom of it.
Yeah. And you always take the oil cap off so that it has air coming in behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you do it, your blade, never sharpen your blade super sharp. It should be like a sharp butter knife, not like a regular blade, because it hits rocks and it won't last long at all. It will not, stay sharp. And you only sharpen this part. This is a mulching mower. That's what these are.
Yeah. So it's got that special shape
Mhm.
of the blade. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll chew up those leaves.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you turn your mower over like this, you're probably going to lose gas if it's full of fuel. You'll lose a little bit. Try to turn it over so that the carburetor is up.
Okay. we go. Okay,
Yeah.
so why don't you do a recap and tell us what are the main things that people would, when my mower doesn't start, what's it most likely?
First thing is look at the gas. If you know the gas is good, then you're no problem. But still look in the tank to make sure that you can see the hole is clear, it doesn't have a leak in there or something blocking the drain. After gas, make sure the air filter is clean, but make sure the spark plug is good.
Right.
Make sure, because if it sits all year, the problem is most mowers sit outside or sit under your deck. A lot of them don't stay in a garage. And so the humidity over time just causes the rust because, it's just regular metal.
Right.
And so, like I said, mice are bad about it, but usually it's just the fuel is the number one. And then the spark plug can stop. The Magneto, because rain goes near all the time, those magnets get dirty. They don't usually stop a mower from running. They usually just don't make it run right.
Right. Okay. Dottie, any more questions?
I don't see any more questions in the chat at this time, but feel free to unmute and ask any last questions.
Well, as luck would have it, I have the identical mower, so that worked out nicely.
Thank you, George.
Anything I didn't answer for you or can help you with?
Well, if we have no further questions at this time, as always, if you think of any questions later, you can email us at info@poolesvilleseniors.org and we will pass them on for you. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's presentation as much as I did and learned something new to help with your own small engines. If you'd like to unmute or turn on your camera now to say goodbye, now's the time. And if you're joining us on Facebook Live, please leave a like and a comment. We'd like to thank Kevin for this presentation, as well as Bill for his camera work. And we'd also like to thank our ongoing sponsors and private contributors that help us keep our programs going, because we love putting them on for you. Tonight's featured sponsor is Turning Point Real Estate. And if you enjoyed tonight's program, please consider joining us for more upcoming events. We'll be back this time next week with Zesty Zucchini and the Edible Garden Girl. As always, you can go to our website, poolesvilleseniors.org, for more info and registration for all of our events. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Dottie.
Thank you.
Good night.